From the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt, this is ATN International News. Now, first the headlines. U.S. imposes sanction on RSF leader. Noboa names acting president for campaign purposes. 13 Cuban soldiers missing after explosions. And Trudeau rejects idea to make Canada a state. First bird flu related death reported in the U.S. Trump to change the name of Mexican Gulf. Missing hiker found after 13 days. Mauritius has its former finance minister, Reganathan Pediaki, in relation to a probe into alleged embezzlement. A police notice in local newspapers said on Tuesday, days after the arrest of the former central bank governor. Havesh C. Ghulam, the central bank chief, was released on bail after the weekend. He was detained and charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. The arrest order against Pediaki and the charging of C. Ghulam were the first major moves by Navin Ramgoolam, who has accused the previous administration of falsifying GDP, budget deficit and public debt figures for years. Pediaki didn't immediately respond to a request for a comment. C. Ghulam's lawyer declined to comment when C. Ghulam was released from detention on Saturday after being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud. In a report to Parliament, Ramgoolam also denies harming civilians and attributes the activity to rogue actors it says is trying to control. U.S. Secretary of the State Antony Blinken said in a statement the RSF and allied militias had continued to direct attacks against civilians, adding they had systematically murdered men and boys on and had deliberately targeted women and girls from certain ethnic groups for rape and other forms of sexual violence. The militias have also targeted fleeing civilians and murdered innocent people escaping conflict, Blinken said. The United States is committed to holding accountable those responsible for these atrocities, Blinken said. Washington announced sanctions on the leader of the RSF, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, barring him and his family from traveling to the U.S. and freezing any U.S. assets he might hold. Financial institutions and others that engage in certain activity with him also risk being hit with sanctions themselves. Revolution in vehicle fuel is gaining momentum in Tanzania, but a lack of filling stations means it is stuck in second gear. Like Nigeria and some other countries on the continent, Tanzania is beginning to embrace compressed natural gas, CNG, as an alternative to petrol and diesel. It is seen as cleaner and better for the environment than those fossil fuels, but its relative cheapness is the biggest draw for the 5,000 or so motorists in the East African states who have embraced the change, particularly commercial drivers. This represents a small fraction of Tanzania's vehicles, but the early adopters are paving the way for a wider acceptance of CNG. The government reportedly wants near total adoption by the middle of the century. Tanzania has large reserves of gas under the sea, and for those filling up, CNG can cost less than half its petrol equivalent. The push to encourage motorists to adopt CNG-powered vehicles in Tanzania was hatched over a decade ago, but did not begin in earnest until 2018. Those in charge of the project acknowledged that they did not foresee the rapid rise in demand. In addition, TPDC is acquiring 5 mobile CNG units that will be located in Dar es Salaam, as well as the capital Dodoma and Morogoro. These measures should, in the medium term, lead to shorter queues, but for the time being, the lack of filling stations will continue to frustrate Tanzania's CNG pioneers. 13 Cuban soldiers are missing after explosions rocked an arms and ammunition depot in the eastern province of Holguin, Cuba's armed forces said late on Tuesday. The explosions rattled the small rural community of Melones, 450 miles south and east of Havana early on Tuesday. Officials had previously said that the blasts were set off by a fire at a construction site. The incident is still under investigation, authorities said. Cuba's military reported 4 officers and 9 soldiers among the missing. Videos on social media showed plumes of dark smoke and flames above a forested tree line near Melones. Soldiers and local police guarded access roads to the site while rescue teams and firefighters worked to put out the flames. Officials earlier on Tuesday said 361 people had been evacuated to a safe location following the explosion. Suspected driver of the Telcel cyber truck that exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas on New Year's Day used popular chatbot ChatGPT to plan the blast, officials told reporters on Tuesday. The suspect used ChatGPT to try and work out how much explosive was needed to trigger the blast, officials said. Authorities last week identified the person found dead inside the car Cybertruck as Matthew Livesberger, 37, an active duty Army soldier from Colorado Springs, and said he acted alone on this. The FBI says the incident appeared to be a case of suicide. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Tuesday dismissed a suggestion by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump that he might use economic force to make Canada the 51st U.S. state. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada would become part of the United States, he said in a post on X. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner. Trump, speaking in Mar-a-Lago, was asked if he was considering using military force to acquire Canada. No economic force, he responded, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. Trump, who has long complained about Canada's trade surplus with the U.S., had earlier told reporters the border was an artificially drawn line. Trump has threatened to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada, which sends 75% of all goods and services exported south of the border. Earlier on Tuesday, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly said Trump's comments show a complete lack of understanding of what makes Canada a strong country. We will never back down in the face of threats. Amid a long-running spat between him and elected Vice President Santa Monica and Malibu had burned, officials said, after they had already warned of extreme fire danger from powerful winds that arrived following extended dry weather. The concerns that more neighborhoods could be forced to flee. The city of Santa Monica later ordered evacuations in the northern fringe of town. Witnesses reported a number of homes on fire with flames as the fire spread from there down to the Pacific Ocean. Firefighters in aircraft scooped water from the sea to drop it on the nearby flames. Flames engulfed homes and bulldozers cleared abandoned vehicles from roads to emergency vehicles, so emergency vehicles could pass. Television underlying health conditions. President-elect Donald Trump is showing no sign of letting up in his desire for the U.S. to acquire Greenland and the Panama Canal, calling both critical to American national security. Asked if he would rule out using military or economic force in order to take over the autonomous Danish territory or the canal, he responded, "No, I can't assure you on either of those two in hell that one of the two countries would merge." President-elect Donald Trump said Tuesday that he would move to